in a world where energy costs seem to be constantly climbing, and, well, we're all becoming more aware of our environmental footprint. Plus, that real pull towards being more self-sufficient. There's this idea that keeps popping up more and more, living off the grid. It kind of taps into something pretty basic in us, doesn't it? So today, our deep dive is all about that idea. We've got a whole range of sources here, technical stuff on power systems, but also, real stories from families who've actually done it. And our mission really is to unpack this big question. Is it actually feasible? Like, can you maintain a comfortable, safe, practical life, especially raising kids, without being hooked up to the usual utilities?
Well, the short answer, yes, it is. But, and this is a big but, it really takes careful planning. You need the right gear, the right equipment, and maybe most importantly, you've got to have realistic expectations about what that life actually involves.
Right, and that's where all this information we've gathered becomes so useful. Because modern tech, especially these much better power generation systems we have now, they've really changed the game. It feels more accessible, more doable than it used to be. So yeah, we're going to tackle those common worries families have head on, look at the real concerns, and explore the modern ways to handle them.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that, off-grid living today, it doesn't automatically mean roughing it in some basic cabin, giving up all the comforts. A lot of off-grid families now have, many of the conveniences we're used to. The difference is how they get them. They're generating their own power, managing their own water, dealing with waste differently. It's probably better to think of it as like a spectrum, not just on or off. You've got fully disconnected, sure, but also people who are partially connected or just have really solid backup systems. The key thing that comes through again and again in our sources is finding that sweet spot for your specific family, what you need, what you're comfortable with, and, of course, what your budget looks like.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit more. I guess the first worry for almost any family thinking about this has got to be energy.
Right.
Power security, reliability, and that makes total sense. You need consistent power for, everything. Basic lighting, keeping food cold, communication, maybe medical equipment. And for families, you often need it for kids. Education stuff too, computers and things. So how have these modern advancements really tackled that core issue, especially if you're looking beyond just, say, a simple solar panel setup?
Yeah, that's the core question. Traditionally, off-grid power was often just solar panels, maybe backed up by old-style lead-acid batteries. And that worked, but it had limits. Think long, cloudy spells or times when you suddenly needed a lot of power at once. But the real insight from the modern sources, the key idea, is what you might call redundancy through diversity. It's about combining different sources. So you have solar, great for daytime, but maybe you add a small wind turbine, which often works better at night or when it's cloudy. And then crucially, you back that all up with a really robust, efficient generator. Doing that doesn't just guarantee you have power, it actually reduces how hard you're working your batteries. They last longer, which saves money in the long run. That's a big financial plus people sometimes miss. Systems like the Ultimate Off-Grid Generator that came up in some of our reading, they really represent this shift. They provide that reliable, steady power families need pretty much no matter what the weather's doing.
That phrase, redundancy through diversity, that really clicks. It makes sense. So when we talk about a truly solid off-grid power system for a family, what are the kind of technical things people should look for? Beyond just, where the power comes from?
Okay, good question. A really comprehensive system, it absolutely needs multiple ways to charge itself. That's key for availability. So solar, obviously, maybe wind, like we said, but definitely a backup generator input for those times when sun and wind aren't enough or your demand just spikes. Then high-capacity battery storage is essential, and we're usually talking advanced lithium-ion types now, not the old lead-acid. These newer batteries, they can handle thousands more charge cycles, and they stay efficient even if you drain them quite a bit. That's huge for consistent power when the sun's down. Portability can matter too, especially for families. Maybe you need to shift solar panels to catch the best sun, or bring gear inside during bad weather, or even if you're using it in an RV setup. And finally, you need plenty of output options, not just the standard wall plugs, the AC outlets, but also USB ports for phones and tablets, DC outputs, maybe even wireless charging pads. It just reflects how we live now.
Wow. Yeah, that definitely sounds like a major step up. It tackles a huge practical problem. But okay, moving beyond the tech of energy, a massive part of family life is, raising kids. And that brings up its own set of concerns for living off-grid. Things like education, social development. How do families handle that if they're maybe far from a traditional school or it's harder for kids to just go hang out with friends?
That's a really valid point. And actually, the rise of homeschooling and remote learning options has made off-grid education much more workable than it used to be. If you've got that reliable power generation we were just talking about, families can usually get internet access through satellite, maybe cellular boosters or mobile hotspots. But what's often overlooked and comes up in family accounts is that off-grid living itself teaches unique skills. Practical, hands-on stuff. Many families find their kids just naturally learn about energy conservation, water systems, managing resources, even basic engineering, just by living with it day to day. It's kind of a built-in curriculum you just don't get in a typical school setting.
Huh. That's a really interesting way to look at it. The home itself becomes a sort of living classroom. Okay, and what about the social side? Isolation is definitely a worry people raise. How do families make sure kids still have connections?
Yeah, it's important, and the sources show it's definitely manageable. It just takes being intentional. With reliable power and internet, kids can keep up with friends through video calls, online games, that sort of thing. But maybe more importantly, lots of off-grid families make a real effort to connect locally. They get involved with homeschooling groups, use community centers in nearby towns, sign kids up for activities. The key is planning for it. Off-grid doesn't have to mean total isolation. It just means you might build your community connections a bit differently.
That leads into another critical area, doesn't it? Healthcare and just being prepared for emergencies. Medical issues, even just routine health stuff, seem like they could be extra challenging off-grid.
What are the main worries for parents there? Especially thinking about power for medical devices or just calling for help. Right. That's a serious consideration. You might have family members who rely on things like CPAP machines for sleep apnea, maybe oxygen concentrators, or even just needing reliable refrigeration for medication. These things absolutely need consistent, uninterrupted power, no question. So a good, comprehensive power generation system is designed to handle exactly that, provides that steady supply. For instance, some of the advanced generators we looked at are built for quiet operation, which is important if you're running a medical device at night. They also often have what's called a clean power output, a pure sine wave, which is crucial for sensitive electronics. And they might have automatic switching features, so if your main source, like solar, dips for a moment, the backup kicks in instantly, no interruption.
Wow, that kind of reliability must offer incredible peace of mind. And, okay, during an actual emergency, a storm, a fire, whatever, communication is just non-negotiable, how do off-grid families make sure they can always reach out, contact emergency services, get weather alerts?
Again, it comes back to that idea of redundancy. Layering your systems. Having advanced off-grid power means that even if one source goes down, say, storm clouds block the sun completely, your backups ensure those critical communication tools still work. Things like satellite phones or cell boosters if you have some signal. They stay powered. This layered approach to power is really what keeps families connected to help and essential information, even when things get tough.
Okay, so beyond powering the essentials like medical gear and communication, one of the most basic family needs is just food, keeping food fresh. Without reliable grid power for a fridge and freezer, food storage off-grid sounds like a huge challenge. How are families actually doing it?
It's definitely something you have to plan for, but modern solutions are pretty effective. It's usually a mix of things. First, you can get highly energy-efficient refrigerators and freezers now, specifically designed for off-grid use. They use way less power than standard models. If you pair those with a decent power generation and battery storage system, they can run continuously. You just need to size your system right. Like a family fridge might use, say, 1 to 3 kilowatt hours a day. A robust power system can handle that no problem. But beyond the appliances, a really big insight from the sources is how families are reviving traditional food preservation methods, things that don't need electricity. So canning, dehydrating, fermenting food, maybe building a root cellar if the climate's right. These become really valuable skills. These methods don't just cut down on power use, they also make your food supply super resilient and diverse. You're less dependent on electricity for everything.
That's a perfect example of how this lifestyle really builds practical skills. Okay, let's shift to something equally vital for a family. Water. Managing water systems, getting it, making sure it's clean, that often seems like a big hurdle for people going off-grid. What are the modern approaches families use for reliable, safe water?
Yeah, water is absolutely fundamental. You're right. Common methods involve rainwater harvesting, setting up systems to collect, store, and filter rain, or drilling a well to tap into groundwater. But just getting the water isn't enough. Making sure it's safe to drink, potable, is crucial. This usually means multi-stage filtration. So you might have mechanical filters first to get out sediment, then activated carbon filters to improve taste and remove some chemicals, and then critically something like UV purification or maybe even reverse osmosis to kill bacteria and viruses and remove dissolved solids. Plus, a lot of families are now using gray water systems too. That means reusing water from sinks and showers for things like watering the garden. It really cuts down on overall water use. Put together, these systems can provide a surprisingly robust and self-sufficient water supply.
That does sound pretty comprehensive. And sticking with that theme, what about waste? Another thing we usually rely on the grid or municipal services for. How do off-grid families handle sanitation and just general household trash without those services?
Right. Waste management is another area where you see some clever solutions and a shift in mindset. For human waste, composting toilets are really popular. They're environmentally sound and turn waste into useful compost over time. For larger households or different needs, traditional septic systems are still common, but they need careful design and regular maintenance to protect the environment. Beyond that, though, a big part of it for off-grid families is just producing less waste in the first place, being really conscious about consumption, recycling everything possible, composting food scraps. What little non-recyclable, non-compostable trash is left usually means making trips to a local transfer station or landfill. It's really about managing the whole flow of resources in and out of the home.
Okay, so with all these systems, power, water, waste kind of dialed in, what does that actually mean for day-to-day comfort, quality of life? I think a lot of families worry that going off-grid means sacrificing modern comforts. No air conditioning, limited hot water, maybe having to ration screen time or something. Is that still a realistic picture today?
Generally, no. Not if the systems are planned well. With enough power generation and especially smart management of that power, off-grid families can enjoy most modern conveniences. The shift is maybe towards smarter, more energy-efficient appliances. Things like heat pump water heaters, super efficient DC-powered fridges. And you pair those with systems that help you manage power use, maybe prioritize certain things, but a robust power system, like the kind we've been discussing, allows families to run multiple things at once. Charge devices have good lighting, maintain comfortable temperatures, it makes the house feel like a home. That ultimate off-grid generator, for instance, is designed to provide that high-capacity, stable power you need for modern comforts.
And what about entertainment? Are worries about, not being able to watch TV or play video games, are those kind of overblown?
Yeah, mostly. Modern power systems can easily handle TVs, game consoles, music systems, all that. What many families actually find, though, is that the lifestyle itself kind of naturally encourages other activities. More time outdoors, creative projects, just spending time together as a family. It often leads to being a bit more mindful about media consumption, which, honestly, a lot of parents see as a positive thing.
This all sounds incredibly appealing, really. But let's talk about the elephant in the room for many families. Cost. Setting up these comprehensive off-grid systems, the generator, the batteries, the solar, the water systems, it can seem really daunting financially, especially if you're on a tight budget.
Yeah.
So what's the real story on financial feasibility?
That's a great question. And the financial side is actually more nuanced than just looking at the upfront equipment price tag. Because remember, living off-grid means you eliminate those monthly utility bills. Electricity, water, maybe sewage fees, depending on where you are. For the average family, that adds up to hundreds of dollars every single month. Over 10, 20 years, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars saved. That money can go a long way towards paying back the initial investment in the equipment. Plus, there's evidence that well-designed off-grid systems can significantly boost a property's value, especially in areas where grid power might be unreliable or expensive anyway.
So it's not necessarily like you have to spend a fortune all at once, right, from day one.
Exactly. That's a key point from our sources. Families don't have to go full-bore off-grid overnight. Many use a more flexible approach. Maybe they start with a good, portable, all-in-one generator system, like the ultimate off-grid generator, which gives them immediate backup power and some independence. Then, over time, as budget allows or their needs grow, they can add more solar panels, increase battery storage, upgrade appliances to more efficient models. It's a modular path. You can build it out gradually, which makes the whole transition feel much less overwhelming financially.
That definitely makes it sound less intimidating. Okay, but what about managing it all? The technical side, the maintenance. I can imagine a lot of families worrying, am I going to be able to handle this? I'm not an engineer, especially without easy access to technicians.
That's where modern design really helps. These advanced off-grid systems today are specifically designed to be much more user-friendly than older setups. Take that generator system again. It typically has intuitive controls, maybe a clear digital screen showing what's going on, automated functions that handle a lot of the complex stuff behind the scenes. For most routine maintenance on modern systems, it's usually pretty straightforward. Things like keeping solar panels clean, checking cable connections are tight, monitoring battery levels. It's generally well within the capability of the average homeowner.
And there's a community aspect too, isn't there?
Yeah.
People aren't usually doing this completely alone.
Absolutely. The off-grid community is incredibly supportive. It's actually one of its strengths. You've got online forums packed with advice, local groups sometimes, plus resources directly from the equipment manufacturers. There's a ton of support out there for families learning the ropes. And funny enough, many families find their kids actually get really into it. They learn quickly and can even help with monitoring the systems or doing basic upkeep. It becomes kind of a shared family project.
Okay, so bringing this all together, circling back to that first big question, what does it all mean? Is off-grid family living really, truly possible?
Based on everything we've looked at, the answer is a definite yes, a resounding yes, actually. Off-grid living isn't just possible for families, it can be incredibly rewarding. The key things you need for success, they're pretty clear from the sources. Realistic planning up front, knowing what you're getting into. You need adequate power generated from diverse sources and stored effectively. Robust systems for water and waste are crucial. Strong connections to community and support networks make a big difference. You need to be willing to keep learning and developing practical skills. And yeah, using quality equipment that's actually designed for family level use, not just, a weekend camper setup.
And you keep coming back to that pivotal point. Reliable power is just so central to making it all work. It seems like solutions, like that ultimate off-grid generator you mentioned, really do tackle those historical power challenges. They let families keep the comfort and convenience they need while getting the huge benefits of energy independence. Now look, it's probably not the right path for every single family. It definitely takes commitment. You have to be willing to adapt. But for those who are willing to embrace it, the opportunities seem unique. Things like closer family bonds from working together on things, a real sense of environmental stewardship, more financial freedom from utility bills, kids learning incredibly valuable practical skills, and just being more resilient, less vulnerable to power outages or other disruptions.
Yeah, and if you think about the big picture here, the most critical first step, if someone listening is considering this, is just that careful, honest planning. Really sitting down and assessing your family's specific situation. What do you really need? What are your capabilities, your budget? With that solid preparation and the right kind of equipment backing you up, off-grid living can absolutely provide a fulfilling, sustainable lifestyle. It benefits the family directly, and it benefits the environment too.
So whether you're maybe thinking about a complete off-grid move, or perhaps you just want to boost your family's energy independence, maybe be better prepared for emergencies, it seems like reliable, self-sustaining systems really make these goals achievable for modern families now. The future of how families live, it increasingly includes options for being more self-sufficient, more environmentally responsible. And off-grid living, it represents one of the most, comprehensive ways to actually achieve those goals.